We've been working out on these processes and these methods of trading, and as we head into a new calendar year 2025, this is something which is giving us a lot of excitement, because in the past 2 or 3 months we've been witness to some super clear signals. The markets you can say have reduced volumes, but the volumes which have been left are super clear volumes, and they've been giving us very clean, definite signals to trade, and that is what is exciting for us as we move into the coming year, right? So let's have a quick look at charts, and then we'll talk a bit about what is the proper process to trade in these markets. I have a Nifty futures chart on screen, and no doubt some of you have looked at it, and there are a lot of elements which go into the making of an order flow chart. So let me just zoom out and bring to you larger variation of this screen, and we get that through these candlestick charts. And this is where the market has been. So it's come down, it's come down, it's come down, right, from this zone, where it was around that 24,800 zone, met a lot of supply along the way, and these pink ones, are where your initiative sellers, had come in previously, right? And for a long time, there was only IS initiative sellers in this down move, but in the past 2 sessions, we've been witness to a lot of initiative buying. And these are the yellow ones which give you that initiative buying, and we got about 3 of them, even one today, and the market has consistently held the lows of those IV bars, which is what is creating that move up which we've seen.
But what I want to draw upon over here is the equation between buyers and sellers, or demand and supply. And at every point in time, this equation keeps changing. And because it keeps changing, price moves. And price moves only when demand, price moves up only when demand is greater than supply. Price moves lower when supply is greater than demand. So once we understand this market as a basic math between buyers and sellers, between demand and supply, what we have to understand is how do we track this demand and supply line. And all my years, I have been trading, I have been able to do that only by what I call an order flow chart.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. A quick sound check. Am I audible? Great. Welcome to this Monday 5 p.m. session. We'll do a quick review of what we have done last week in spot, which we generally do. And then we'll have a look at what we are doing on the monthly time frame, because today has been a very important session. So the structure of August, which was developing till now, has changed a bit today. So let's get on with the weekly report and see what we did in spot last week, and then we'll move on to today's action. So we have on screen the weekly report which we upload every week on the forum. Under the forum section, we have the weekly spot from 11th to 14th. Friday was a holiday cause of Independence Day, so it was a holiday shortened week last week. So what did we do in Nifty spot last week? For the first time in 6 weeks, we have got a buyer dominated profile on the weekly time frame. Before this, 5 weeks neutral extreme weekly profiles we were getting on the downside. What used to happen? Monday, the buyer used to make an attempt to probe higher. Tuesday, the buyer used to fail and the seller used to take over. And into the week, into the close of the week, we used to always make new lows with a close around the lows. So for the first time in 6 weeks, we had got a normal variation profile to the upside. So which itself was a uh, important cue which we got. So let's see what we did last week with in relation to the daily chart. So what we did open on Monday last week, we could not break these poor lows of the week prior to it, and we left a very important. It was a very small, but it was a very important A period buying tail. So when you are not able to probe below and you're leaving a buying tail, it only means that the supply is missing and the downside is not there. And that is the reason we probed higher. We went on to get into this weekly value and almost tagged this POC of 24622. So in doing so, we left an extension handle here and it was a spike close. It was a close in an imbalance. So on Tuesday, we continued this imbalance higher. But what we did, we could not take off this weekly failed auction. We saw how the poor highs left a weekly failed auction last week in the week from 4th to 8th August at 24736, and that was not able to be taken out. And what we did was we left a B period tail. So this is also an initiative selling tail. Yes, it has come in the second TPO, not in the first. We do give more importance to the A period singles, but still this rejection has come in the initial balance. So this also is very important. You can see how we were not able to take this out for the rest of the week. And once we left a selling tail here, the PLR became to the downside. We went on to swipe lower. We tested this halfback, which was coinciding with this weekly value, which held. So this holding, it was only telling us that the auction now wants to remain in a narrow range. That is what we did. We formed overlapping value for the next 2 days with the range getting narrow and narrow. So it was kind of coiling. So what we saw was after the opening day on Monday, which was a trend day to the upside, we left a 3-day balance. So from this balance, we were expecting a move away today. So let's have a look at the weekly profile of what we have done last week and what were the references we were carrying out for this week. So here you can see that's what I was speaking about, how the close of last week itself gave a very important cue. We closed right in the middle, and this is a normal variation profile to the upside. If you see the profiles, we have 3 profiles here. You can see how the close is around the lows of each of the weekly profiles, and all of them have been neutral extreme profiles to the downside. So it tells us that the seller was in control into the close, and we had a closing imbalance. So this last week was the first time we did not close as a neutral extreme down, and as I showed you, we had a very small but significant buying tail at the lows. And yes, we did have a rejection at the top also, but overall on the weekly time frame, it was a normal variation to the upside profile, and the value and the range both were inside previous week. So that is the reason what we were looking for was a imbalance to start from here, because after a balance you get an imbalance, and that is what the concept of market profile tells us, shows us. And we saw that 3-day coiling which was happening, which got done with the settlement day. So we were looking for a move away from this balance. And overall also on the higher time frame, we are forming a 2 week composite. We can see this value is overlapping for the last uh, 2 weeks. Even this the week prior to that, you can see the POC also has been at the same level. So these were the hypos for today. And although we opened higher, we have taken out all of these hypos at the open. What was it on the upside which we were looking for? I'll come to the chart in a bit, today's chart, and we'll see what we have done. And to coming to the poor highs and poor lows, not all poor highs and poor lows have to be repaired, because at times we get poor highs or poor lows which is showing us exhaustion. We saw a classic case of poor highs when we got this failed auction on the weekly time frame. This we had a similar poor high on the weekly when this neutral extreme series of neutral extreme to the downside charted. I'll open up the weekly profile and show you that. We'll see how just the occurrence of poor highs does not mean anything. It has to be taken in the context of what is happening. So this, the start of July is where the trend of the neutral extreme profiles on the downside started. You can see this. We had a session on this also, how we were stalling right at this VPOC and leaving poor highs over there. So what was the poor highs telling us? This was a VPOC at 25546 from the last week and the last 30th of June to 4th of July. So 25546 was the weekly POC, and the next week the buyer made an attempt to probe higher, but left poor highs there. So when we are stalling at an important reference, it is just showing you exhaustion, the incapability of the buyer to get above that. And this itself resulted in this big move lower. This was the start of the neutral extreme series. So after this, we got another set of poor highs on the weekly and another neutral extreme. You can see how this continues. And coming to the last 2 weeks, same scenario repeated, wherein 28th July to 1st of August, we left these poor highs at 25956 and we got a failed auction on the weekly time frame. This was a neutral extreme profile to the downside and we closed with a extension handle in a spike lower. Same thing happened in the week 4th to 8th August. You can see multiple highs, multiple TPOs forming highs over there. And again, we got that failed auction on the weekly time frame and a neutral extreme profile to the downside. So what we have done last week was we left a normal variation and we were looking for a move away from this POC. So weekly time frame and spot, we give POC the most importance. We are bullish above the POC and bearish below the POC. So what we did today was we opened with a huge gap up of I think 300 plus points. So in the gap up, we took out this two weekly failed auction. The first one was at this 24736 and the second one was at 24956. So what we did after that, the B period probed higher. We made an attempt to get into this weekly value, but that was met with a rejection. Why it was a rejection? Because we left a B period selling tail there and we stopped short of this VPOC, weekly VPOC of 25059, which would have been our objective if we would have continued higher after the initial balance. So what the auction has done today is, because of this rejection, it is probed lower, and this important level for the month of August, which is the rollover point, you can see how this rejection has come back to test this reference and it has taken support right at that rollover point. So what we have done today is formed a normal profile and it's a 313. We have got small tails at both ends. We don't have the morning low here. 24882 was the morning low, I think. which we did break briefly in the G period, but we were not able to do much below the rollover point. So going forward for tomorrow and the rest of the week, what would be our references? So value wise, we are way above this weekly value. So we are way above this weekly value, and this is a gap zone. So what our first reference would definitely be this rollover point on the downside. Above the rollover point, we would remain bullish. Below the rollover point, we look for downside supports. So where would be the supports? The first support would be at the 24784, which is the midpoint of this gap zone. The gap between the close of Thursday and the open of today. The midpoint is at 24784. So that will be our first reference. And below that, we had a failed auction at 24736. To come back to that point, 24784 is also uh, the opening highs of this month, and 24784 was where we left a failed auction also on the 1st of August. So that is the reason it becomes important. Just like we talk about change of polarity, a broken support becomes resistance and vice versa. So this 24784 was an important supply side reference till now for the month of August. Now that it has been taken out with a gap, that needs to show us change of polarity. So that will be our first support below the 24860 rollover point reference. So if we stay below this, we are looking the auction to hold support there. If we break below this, then we are looking at this 24736, and then a break of this will get us a test of this weekly POC of 24649. So this is how we are placed in the Nifty spot for the uh, downside in the coming sessions. What about the upside? What do we need to do? First thing is we'll have to stay above the rollover point for us to retain a bullish view for the rest of the month. So if we are below the above this, then we look to stay above the POC of today, and then we have this pullback highs H and I, you can see, which is coinciding with this negated weekly failed auction of 24956. So 24956, and then we have this small selling tail of today. So these would be our references on the upside if we are able to take this off, and then we are looking for a tag of this weekly VPOC and a further probe higher to the upside. On the monthly time frame, the monthly profile is now a neutral one. Why? Because we have made new highs for the month today. Yes, we have not been able to close at the highs. We have in fact made a retracement lower, but we will value wise we have formed higher value for the day. So we will need to see with respect to the rollover point how the auction develops in the coming sessions. So the rollover point will be the all important level for us to watch out for in spot. So let me now move on to the Bank Nifty weekly report, and then we will see what we have done in the spot today. So even in Bank Nifty, you can see how last week was a normal variation profile to the upside, similar to what we saw in Nifty, but in Bank Nifty there was a change. What we saw in Bank Nifty was same again, the same thing. We did not break below this spike close of previous week, and we left a longer A period buying tail. So the buyers were more intent in Bank Nifty. We got back into this weekly value, completed the 80% rule. And after completing the 80% rule, what did we do? We were not able to sustain above that. So we left a small selling tail, and we came back into the weekly value. And again on Tuesday, we again see this B period selling tail. So which is showing us rejection above this weekly value. So that was telling us that the demand is not adding up above the weekly value. Below the weekly value, we got the initiative buying tail. So we knew the demand was there, but above the weekly value, we were not getting demand. So hence we came back lower, tested this buying tail, took support there. Again, you can see we left similar lows on Wednesday. So this was again a sign of exhaustion. And this came at an important buy side reference. We had an initiative buying tail which held in the spike lower on Tuesday, and then again the probe lower, the range extension which we made on 13th of August resulted in similar lows right there. So another case of how the similar lows was showing us exhaustion. This did not mean that this lows needed to be repaired. It was coming at an important buy side reference. That is the reason the seller was not able to take this out. And this, because of this, what happened is we got an open rejection reverse start to the upside on Thursday, wherein we opened probe below this value, got rejected and went back, and we stayed above this daily value. But what we did was we made a typical seaside extension which stalled the upside, and the upside stalled right at this selling tail. So you can see how these references which are left out keep uh, proving themselves to be important ones. Until the time they hold, we will keep having them as a reference marker for us when the daily auction uh, takes place. So we formed a P-shaped profile, but on the weekly, what have we done? The weekly profile was completely inside the elongated profile of Monday. So you can see how this highs and lows were, and we just continued to coil. Hence, we formed a nice Gaussian curve on the weekly profile, which was completely inside the previous week's value and range. Similar to what we saw in Nifty, but this was even more comprehensive when it comes to the range. So how does the weekly profile look? So here is our weekly profile in Bank Nifty, and you can see how we have formed a nice Gaussian curve on the weekly time frame. So when you are a market profiler, this kind of profiles will brighten you up. Why? Because this is signaling the end of a balance. And what does the end of the balance means? That means that a fresh imbalance is about to begin. So you are very much alerted by these kind of profiles. The structure is shouting, telling us that the balance, the coil mode is done, and we are likely to start a fresh imbalance in the coming session. So that is what we were expecting this week. We were expecting a move away from the 2-week composite, both in Nifty as well as Bank Nifty spot. And that is the reason we had that marked even in the uh, brief. So it was forming a well balanced Gaussian curve and an inside week both in terms of range and value. So we're looking set for a move to imbalance from this zone. So upside objective for this week was this VPOC of 56187, which coincides with the rollover point. So what have we done today? Let us have a look. We'll open up the weekly spot chart and we'll see what we have done. So I'll just split this chart. So you can see how we opened higher. It was a big gap up. We closed around this 55 350 level, and coming back to that 55 350 level, we had spoken about this when we discussed the monthly profile, and we had discussed how 55355 was one important reference. So you can see how this base was formed around that, closed from there, and from there we got a huge gap up of 600 points. So what did this gap up do? Again, the gap up stalled right at the rollover point and this weekly VPOC. 56156 is the high today, and that is the reason we give so much importance to the rollover point, and we have it covered as soon as a new series or a new calendar month begins. And our funda is simple: above the rollover point we are bearish, above the rollover point we are bullish, below it we are bearish. So we had a chance to take out this rollover point for the first time in August, but what did we do? We could not. we left a small B period tail just below that, and that is the reason we saw this big liquidation drop in Bank Nifty. So we have formed kind of a double distribution profile on the daily time frame, but we have seen the POC shift lower to 55780. So that will be our reference for now. These highs are holding, so that will be the support. So, but like in Nifty, it is we are much above the rollover point at the close. In Bank Nifty, we are still to take that rollover point out. So we need to see we how the auction plays out in the coming sessions. Whether we again get back higher, take off, get a test of this rollover point, are able to sustain above it, and only then we'll be more bullish. So that is how we are placed in Bank Nifty spot. And a quick look now, quick shout out here. We have the Independence Day celebration offer running in for the charts, and you have it. If you have the subscription plans, you have a flat 40% off on yearly plans. So this offer is valid till today midnight. So guys who are wanting to join in or wanting to extend their plans, this is the best. You'll not get such an offer again. So make sure you make use of this and join us, because what you get in the charts, the data, the live tick by tick data from NSE enables us to identify the change as it is happening, because the markets are changing fast, and the change will they'll keep getting faster and faster. So we need to be sure that the tools which we have are the best, and we can depend on them, and accordingly have our biases in the right place. So along with the annual plan, you get free access to the e-course, the 12 videos which we have. So make sure you make most of this freedom offer, and get into a long-term connection with the markets. The tools which we have will definitely help trading the markets. You have the IB signals, IS signals, which give you the initiative buying or selling. It helps you to understand the intent. And we just don't have candlesticks. We have the smart candlestick, wherein you get to see the COT, you get to see the M flow. So you know where the money is coming in and where the money is going out. We also have the gamma density, which is added recently. We have the spectrum charts for understanding the option structure, and we also have the volumex, which tells you when a particular set of writers, whether it is call or put, are forced to exit. So that in itself gives us some good trading opportunities. So in the market profile, we have lot of advanced features. We can bookmark the charts. We have KRL's key reference levels which we can mark up. We have those anchored VWAP for futures chart, and we also have the opportunity, the choice to look at multi time frame charts. So monthly series is there, monthly chart is there, weekly series is there, weekly charts is there, and then we have the daily charts. So this offer is going to get over today, so make sure you make use of them. And in case you have any queries, you can send me a DM on X at Uttam Goyal is my ID, and we'll be happy to answer your queries. So now quickly coming back to the futures and what we have done in the futures, let's have a quick run at the market profile chart and the 15-minute order flow of Nifty futures, and then we'll do a quick run through the Bank Nifty futures. So very important here to figure out is how you are in sync with what has happened before. So when we open with this gap up today, it was looking like an open drive up. So because we had this big green bar and we moved higher, and this was the POC. We continued making higher highs. So it was looking as a bullish start and we could expect a good uptrend day. But what happened here? In this B period, we left an RS signal. And where did this RS come? Make a note of this 25072 and I'll take you back to where we tested that level last. So here you see this 25th of July. We have this initiative selling tail. And this selling tail, the base of this selling tail is right where we got the RS today. So this is what the order flow and the market profile tells us. Or market profile is giving us the structure, order flow is showing us how much, what volumes are coming at which level. So when we were probing higher in the morning, all of us were bullish. But when we got this RS bar, and this bar stalled right in this initiative selling tail. So it was telling us that the sellers are coming here, which forced some buyers to book out. So we were still not very worried because it was more of profit booking which was seen in the tape. We were not getting much of IS signals. But then what happened later after the C period was we tested this VWAP multiple times. So when it's a strong open, when you are bullish, this test of VWAP should have been enough. We should have started to probe higher again, but that did not happen. In fact, we went on to have this multiple tests, and finally the VWAP broke, and the morning POC which reference which we had of 24988, once that broke, we knew that now the auction is no longer bullish, and we went on to make this low of 24916 in the G period. But then again what we saw was supply was not adding at the lower levels. So that is the reason we gave a small bounce back to the VWAP, and we left this pullback high at this 25008 reference. So this is what happened in the morning today. So you can see how we stalled right at the selling tail of 25th July, and that stalled the bullishness of today, and it forced the sellers to book out. So forced the buyers to book out and the sellers to step back in. So this is what happened in the Nifty futures. So what is the cue for tomorrow? So let us have the profile chart of today on the left and the 30-minute order flow on the. So you can see how we have an IS signal on the 30 minutes, but for this IS signal to be active, we need volume below this 24955. So if we get below that and we see some IS3 shorter time frame sell signals, we know now that we are probing lower. And what would be our lower references? It would be these unvisited NPOCs which are standing out. So these would be our reference. So this is as far as the Nifty futures is concerned. What we need to look out for is a probe back about today's VWAP and some IB signals for us to retain the bullishness. And yes, of course, this rollover point would be our important reference 24860. We have marked that in spot as well. So same thing will hold in the futures also. So if we break today's lows, the next support would be at 24860. And that what order flow shows over there would then set up the next phase in auction for us. So let us now quickly do a review of what we did in Bank Nifty futures before we can wind up. So Bank Nifty also was a good positive start. After the gap up, we saw a good clean move on the upside. So it was a green bar in the opening 15 minutes and it was looking as if we are going to continue higher. But what happened, similar to Nifty, we saw an RS bar in the next 15 minutes itself, then another RS in the B period. And you see this high of 56245 in the VLD, the Vtrender live desk, we discussed this, and we had mentioned this in live market that this is a failed auction. Where was the failed auction from? It was from the first day of August. So you can see how on the first day of August we made this seaside and left a failed auction at 56249. Our daily reports has a mention of this failed auction. And when today at the open, after the gap up and this probe higher, we stopped right at that failed auction level, we knew that the buyer does not have the strength as of now to take this failed auction now. So this was a very clear sign of booking out longs. Yes, it was not a signal to go short. We go short on IS signals, but because of this green bar and the gap up and the imbalance which we had seen because of the 2 week coil mode had stalled here because of this RS and this failed auction not giving the gate pass. So that is the reason. From there we made this good probe down, and we went on to in fact break the morning lows and go on to make this double distribution kind of a profile. So you can see how we left an extension handle at this 55951, and we are able to uh, make a small balance on the downside. So this is a typical double distribution profile which started with the HVN POC at the right at the top, and then we extended lower with an extension handle. This zone of singles held, and we have almost got the POC shift to the lower quadrant. Anchored KRLs are, yes, you can mark them. We give the example of this chart. We share the link of this bookmark in our reports. You can open this bookmark, or you can yourself save a chart and add your own KRLs. You just need to go to the profile and have this custom create KRL option, which will, because I'm in a 2 window mode, I'll not be able to add it now, but this is how you will have to do. Select the profile, right click and add the KRL. And what we generally do is we add anchored VWAP from swing highs and swing lows. So those serve out as important references. So you can see how we stalled at two important sell side references in both Nifty and Bank Nifty, and what would be the way forward in Bank Nifty for tomorrow. So what we have done here is we'll have to first take off this extension handle, and then we have this RS POC. The POC is right at the top, and this is coinciding with our rollover point. So you can see how the rollover point will keep on giving us important cues right through the series. So the ability to not hold the rollover point after the gap up was itself a cue that you need to come out of longs. So same thing in Nifty futures. Tomorrow, for any case we break below the rollover point, then you know that you need to look for long puts or short calls. And the other tools which we have, the volumex chart and the order flow 3-minute chart, will help you to get into the trade even more precisely. So the higher open is given as a range extension down, but albeit value is higher. So we will have to see how we open and stay in the first 15 minutes tomorrow based on these references, and then we will have a much better, clearer idea of whether the upside will continue in this week or whether we are going back into the test of previous week's range. So that is it for today, guys, and make sure you are making use of this offer which gets over tonight. So these are the best tools you can get to trade these kind of markets. So in case you are interested and you want to take your trading to another level, get into this, commit for a longer time, and make sure you work on these setups which we explain in these webinars, and we also put them out on Twitter so that as a trading community we can continue to grow. Thank you guys for joining in, and I'm signing off for now, and we'll catch up again Thursday evening.